Close your eyes now. Let your breathing slow. Tonight, you are walking through the quiet streets of an old Mexican town. The air is warm and still. Streetlights cast soft circles of yellow light on the cobblestones. Your footsteps echo gently in the peaceful night. You have come here to learn about a legend, a story that has been told for hundreds of years. The story of La Llorona, the weeping woman. But tonight, this is not a scary tale. Tonight, this is a journey into mystery, a gentle exploration of something beautiful and sad and very old. The town around you sleeps peacefully. Windows glow with warm light. Somewhere a guitar plays a slow, soft melody. The notes drift through the air like whispers, like secrets shared between friends. You walk slowly, taking your time. There is no rush. There is nowhere you need to be except right here, right now, in this moment of quiet discovery. As you walk, you begin to understand something important. Every legend starts somewhere. Every story has roots that grow deep into the earth of human experience. The tale of La Llorona is not just about one woman. It is about all the women who have ever felt loss, all the mothers who have ever worried, all the souls who have ever carried sorrow in their hearts. You turn down a narrow street. The buildings here are very old. Their walls are thick adobe, painted in soft colors that have faded with time. Pink, like the inside of a seashell. Blue, like a summer sky at twilight. Yellow, like warm honey. The paint peels gently in places, creating patterns that look like clouds or waves or distant mountains. In the plaza ahead, you see a fountain. Water flows quietly from its center, creating a soft, rhythmic sound that matches your heartbeat. You walk toward it slowly. Each step brings you closer to understanding. Each breath takes you deeper into the peaceful mystery that surrounds La Llorona. The fountain is old, very old. Children have played here for generations. Lovers have met here under starlight. Grandmothers have sat on its edge, telling stories to wide-eyed grandchildren. And sometimes, on nights like this, when the world is quiet and the veil between past and present grows thin, you can almost hear the echoes of all those voices, all those stories, all those moments. She loved her life with a gratitude that filled every day with wonder. But love, you are learning, is complicated. Love is beautiful and terrible and mysterious. Love can lift you to the highest mountains and drop you into the deepest valleys. Love can heal and love can hurt. Love can create and love can destroy. The woman in the legend learned this truth in the hardest way possible. You open your eyes and look around the plaza. The night is so peaceful here, so quiet. You can imagine this place during the day. Market vendors selling bright fruits and vegetables, children running and laughing, musicians playing in the shade of large trees, life happening in all its messy, beautiful complexity. But now, in the gentle darkness, the plaza belongs to memory, to story, to the quiet places where legends live and breathe and whisper their secrets to those who know how to listen. The water in the fountain continues its soft song. You lean forward and let your fingers trail in the cool water. Ripples spread outward in perfect circles, each one carrying its own small piece of the story. Each one a reminder that every action has consequences. Every choice creates waves that spread far beyond what we can see. The woman in the legend made choices. Some were wise, some were foolish. Some were driven by love, some were driven by pain. She was human, which means she was imperfect. She was real, which means she was complicated. She was a mother, which means she carried the weight of the world in her heart every single day. You think about mothers as you sit by the fountain, about the way they worry, the way they love, the way they sacrifice, the way they carry their children in their hearts long after those children have grown and moved away. Mothers are the keepers of memory, the guardians of family stories, the ones who remember every scraped knee, every first word, every small triumph and tiny tragedy. In Mexico, mothers are especially honored. There is a deep reverence for motherhood that runs through the culture like underground water. It flows beneath everything. It nourishes everything. It connects past and present and future in an unbroken chain of love and care and protection. The woman who would become La Llorona understood this reverence. She felt it in her bones. She lived it in her daily life. When her children were small, she would wake before a flower blooming in an unexpected place, a cat sunning itself on a warm wall. She taught them to notice beauty, to appreciate small wonders, to find joy in simple things. This is what good mothers do. They teach their children how to see, how to appreciate, how to love. They pass on wisdom through daily actions more than through words. They show their children what it means to be human, what it means to care, what it means to belong to something larger than yourself. But life, as you are learning, is not always gentle. Life does not always reward good intentions with good outcomes. Life can be harsh and unfair and cruel. The woman in the legend discovered this truth gradually, like watching storm clouds gather on a distant horizon. Her husband began to change. The love that had once burned bright between them began to flicker. Like a candle in the wind, it grew weak and uncertain. He stayed away from home more often. He spoke to her less kindly. He looked at her with eyes that seemed to see a stranger instead of the woman he had once cherished. This is one of the great sorrows of human life. The way love can fade. The way two people who once could not imagine living without each other can slowly, gradually, become strangers. It happens quietly, like erosion. One small hurt at a time, one disappointment at a time, one broken promise at a time. The woman tried to hold on. She tried to reignite the spark that had brought them together. She cooked his favourite meals. She wore her prettiest dress. She smiled even when her heart was breaking. She hoped that love could overcome whatever was pulling them apart. But hoping is not always enough. Trying is not always enough. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, despite our deepest love, things fall apart anyway. This is a hard truth, a painful truth, but it is part of the human experience, part of what makes us who we are. You lean back from the fountain and look up at the stars. They seem so far away, so peaceful, so eternal. They have watched over countless human dramas, countless stories of love and loss. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have witnessed the birth and death of dreams. And still they shine, constant and beautiful and reassuring. The stars remind you that this story, like all stories, is part of something larger, part of the great tapestry of human experience. Clever animals and magic that lived in ordinary things. She would watch their faces in the lamplight and see wonder there, see trust, see love. And for a moment the pain would fade and she would remember what mattered most. Children have this power, this ability to bring us back to what is real and important. They see the world with fresh eyes. They believe in magic. They love unconditionally. They remind us of who we used to be before life made us careful and guarded and afraid. The woman treasured these moments with her children. She stored them in her heart like a miser stores gold. She knew somehow that these were the moments she would remember always. These were the moments that would sustain her when everything else was gone. But even these precious moments were threatened by the growing darkness in her marriage. Her husband's absence became longer. His anger became sharper. His indifference became colder. The house that had once been filled with laughter began to echo with silence and tension and unspoken fears. The children felt it too. Children always do. They are sensitive to the emotional weather of their homes. They pick up on things adults think they are hiding. They worry in ways that break your heart. They blame themselves for problems they did not create and cannot solve. The woman tried to shield them from the worst of it. She tried to maintain normalcy even as her world was crumbling. She continued their bedtime routines. She still made their favourite foods. She still sang to them, though sometimes her voice caught on the high notes, and she had to pause and breathe deeply before continuing. This is what mothers do. They hold things together even when they are falling apart inside. They put on brave faces even when they are terrified. They continue loving even when love seems futile. They sacrifice their own happiness for the happiness of their children without thinking twice about it. You stand up from the fountain and begin walking again. Your footsteps echo softly in the empty plaza. The sound is lonely but not frightening. It is the sound of solitude, which is different from loneliness. Solitude can be peaceful. Solitude can be healing. Solitude can be a gift we give ourselves when the world becomes too much to bear. As you walk, you think about the different versions of La Llorona's story that exist. Every region has its own telling. Every family has its own details. Some say she across cultures and generations. The idea that some losses are so deep they leave permanent marks on the world. The idea that love and grief are so powerful they can transcend death itself. You turn down another narrow street. This one is even quieter than the last. The houses here are small and humble. Working people live here. People who get up before dawn and work hard all day and fall into bed exhausted at night. People who know the value of simple pleasures and small kindnesses. These are the people who keep legends alive, not scholars or writers or historians, but ordinary people who gather in kitchens and courtyards and tell stories to their children and grandchildren. People who understand that stories are not just entertainment, but ways of making sense of the world, ways of passing on wisdom, ways of connecting past and future. The legend of La Llorona lives in these houses. It lives in the voices of grandmothers warning children to stay away from dangerous water. It lives in the whispered conversations of women who understand what it means to love so deeply it hurts. It lives in the collective memory of a people who have known both great joy and great sorrow. You pause outside one of the houses. Through a window you can see a soft light glowing. Someone is still awake, maybe reading, maybe praying, maybe just sitting quietly with their thoughts. The light is warm and welcoming. It reminds you that even in the darkest night, there is always some small flame of hope burning somewhere. This is what sustained the woman in the legend during her darkest hours. The knowledge that love exists, that kindness exists, that even when everything seems hopeless, there are still moments of beauty and connection and grace. She found these moments in her children's laughter, in the way morning light fell across her kitchen table, in the songs birds sang outside her window. But sustaining hope when everything is falling apart requires tremendous strength. It requires a kind of courage that most people never have to test. The woman in the legend was tested in ways that would break many people. Her strength was pushed to its absolute limits. And sometimes even the strongest people reach the end of what they can bear. The exact moment when everything changed varies depending on who tells the story. Some say it was when she discovered her husband with like lightning. Sometimes it is gradual, like water wearing away rock. Sometimes it is violent. Sometimes it is quiet. But when it comes, it changes everything. It divides life into before and after. It creates a wound that never fully heals. You continue walking through the sleeping town. The streets here are older, narrower. The buildings lean toward each other like old friends sharing secrets. You can feel the weight of history in these stones, all the lives that have been lived here, all the stories that have unfolded between these walls. Every street holds memories. Every doorway has witnessed partings and reunions. Every window has framed both tears and laughter. This is what makes old places so powerful. They are repositories of human experience. They hold our stories even after we are gone. The woman in the legend walked these streets too. Maybe these exact streets. Maybe streets very much like them. She walked them in joy when her children were small and her marriage was strong. She walked them in growing worry as problems mounted. She walked them in desperation when everything fell apart. Streets remember. Stones remember. Water remembers. This is something you understand as you walk through the quiet darkness. The physical world holds imprints of the emotional world. Places can be haunted not by ghosts but by feelings, by the intensity of human experience that happened there. You come to a bridge that crosses a small river. The water below moves slowly, quietly. It reflects the lights from the town, creating a mirror image that shimmers and dances with each small movement of the current. Water and light and reflection. These are the elements that appear in every version of La Llorona's story. You stop in the middle of the bridge and look down. The water is dark but not frightening. It is the darkness of depth, of mystery, of things hidden but not necessarily dangerous. Rivers have always been sacred to humans, sources of life, highways for trade and exploration, boundaries between one world and another. In the legend, water plays a central role. It is where the tragedy occurred, but water is also where rebirth happens, where cleansing happens, where the old is washed away to make room for the new. Water is both ending and beginning, both death and life. The woman came to water in her moment of greatest despair. Forward. This is not an excuse for harmful actions. It is simply a recognition of human frailty, of the fact that we are all capable of breaking under sufficient pressure, of the fact that mental illness and emotional trauma can distort thinking in dangerous ways, of the fact that tragedy often creates more tragedy in an endless, heartbreaking cycle. You lean against the railing of the bridge and breathe deeply. The air smells of water and growing things and the particular scent that comes just before dawn. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls once, then falls silent. The world is balanced on the edge between night and morning, between darkness and light, between one day and the next. This is when legends feel most real, in these liminal moments when ordinary reality becomes thin and permeable, when the boundary between what is and what might be grows blurry, when the imagination can reach across time and touch events that happened long ago but somehow still echo in the present. You close your eyes and listen to the water flowing beneath the bridge. It has been flowing like this for hundreds of years. It flowed on the night when the woman made her terrible choice. It flowed as she stood by its banks, holding her children, making the decision that would define her for eternity. It flowed as the tragedy unfolded, and it has continued flowing ever since, carrying her story with it wherever it goes. Rivers are like that. They are witnesses. They see everything and remember everything and carry everything downstream. They connect mountains to oceans. They connect past to present to future. They connect all the places they touch with all the stories that happen along their banks. The woman's story became part of the river that night. It sank into the water like a stone and travelled with the current to the sea, and then rose with the mist and fell with the rain and found its way into other rivers in other places. This is how legends spread, not through books or newspapers, but through the natural elements that connect all things. After the tragedy, the woman's spirit could not rest. This is what all the stories agree on. Her grief was so profound, her regret so complete that death could not contain it. She became something between human and ghost, something between memory and reality, something that exists in the spaces between what we know and what we fear. She was seen first by the river where it happened, standing in the shallows calling for her children. Her voice carried on crying that happens in the dark when no one else can hear. Some said she was dangerous, that she would steal children to replace the ones she had lost. But others said she was protective, that she watched over children who played too close to dangerous water, that she warned mothers to hold their little ones closer, that she appeared when children were in peril, not to harm them, but to help them. Perhaps both versions are true. Perhaps legends exist in the space between protection and danger, between love and loss, between helping and harming. Perhaps the woman who became La Llorona is both warning and threat, both cautionary tale and guardian spirit. You open your eyes and look down at the water again. It continues its quiet journey toward the sea, patient, persistent, eternal. It does not judge the stories it carries, it simply carries them. This is wisdom worth learning. Sometimes our job is not to judge, but simply to witness, to hold space for the full complexity of human experience. The sky is beginning to lighten in the east. Dawn is still hours away, but the absolute darkness of night is starting to soften. This is the time when shifts happen, when one thing becomes another, when transformation occurs in the spaces between what was and what will be. You leave the bridge and continue walking. The streets are leading you away from the centre of town now, toward the edges where the buildings give way to fields and gardens. Here the night feels different, wilder, more open to possibility. This is where legend and reality meet and dance together in the half-light of almost dawn. You pass a small church. Its doors are closed but not locked. Light glows softly through the windows, suggesting someone is inside, praying perhaps, or simply sitting in the peaceful darkness, finding comfort in the presence of something larger than themselves. Churches hold many stories, many confessions, many pleas for forgiveness and understanding. The woman in the legend might have come to a church like this, before the tragedy, after the tragedy, seeking guidance, seeking absolution, seeking some way to make sense of what had happened to her life. Faith offers comfort to many people, but for others it raises more questions than it answers. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why does love sometimes lead to loss? Why does trying your best sometimes not be enough? These are the questions that legends explore. Not by providing easy answers, but by acknowledging that the wider world begins. In this borderland between civilization and nature, legends feel most at home. This is where the rational world gives way to mystery, where the seen blends with the unseen, where the possible expands to include things that cannot be measured or contained, or fully explained. You walk among the fields now. Corn grows here, tall and rustling in the gentle night breeze. The leaves whisper against each other, creating a sound like distant conversation, like secrets being shared between old friends, like the earth itself talking in a language older than human words. The woman walks here too, in the stories people tell. She appears in places like this when the moon is dark and the night is still. She searches among the growing things, calling for her children. Her voice mingles with the wind in the corn. Her sorrow becomes part of the landscape. Her love becomes part of the soil that feeds new life. This is how healing happens in legends. Not through forgetting, but through integration, through becoming part of something larger, through allowing loss to transform into something that nurtures rather than destroys. The woman's grief becomes a warning that protects other children. Her regret becomes wisdom that guides other mothers. Her love becomes a presence that watches over all who are vulnerable. You find a place to sit among the corn rows. The earth is soft beneath you, warm from the day's sun. You lean back and look up at the stars. They seem so close here, so bright, so numerous. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, like a path between worlds, like a bridge spanning the gap between earth and heaven. Indigenous cultures throughout Mexico have always known that the dead do not simply disappear. They become part of the landscape, part of the weather, part of the cycle of seasons that governs all life. They return in the rain that waters the crops, in the wind that carries seeds to new places, in the dreams that connect the living with all who came before. La Llorona fits into this understanding. She is not separate from the natural world, but part of it. Her tears become rain. Her voice becomes wind. Her searching becomes the restless movement of water that never stays in one place for long. She is both individual woman and universal force, both specific story hearts long after those children are grown. About the way love persists even when its object is gone. About the way memory can be both blessing and curse. About the way some bonds are so strong they transcend death itself. Every mother fears losing her children. It is the nightmare that lurks at the edge of every parent's consciousness, the possibility too terrible to contemplate, but too real to ignore. The woman in the legend lived this nightmare. She experienced the loss that every parent fears most, and in her story that loss became something that protects other children from similar fates. This is the paradox at the heart of the legend. Through her tragedy, she becomes a guardian. Through her failure, she becomes a protector. Through her loss, she becomes present in a way she never was in life. Death transforms her from individual woman into eternal force, from specific person into universal symbol. The wind picks up slightly, moving through the corn with a sound like gentle rain. You close your eyes and listen. In that sound you can almost hear her voice, not frightening or angry, but sad and loving and endlessly protective. The voice of every mother who has ever worried about her children. Every woman who has ever felt the weight of responsibility for small, vulnerable lives. Her crying is not just grief, but also love. Love so deep it cannot be contained by death. Love so strong it reshapes reality around itself. Love so persistent it becomes legend. This is what the stories are really about. Not fear but love, not punishment but protection. Not ending but transformation. You lie back in the soft earth between the corn rows. The stars wheel slowly overhead, marking the passage of time in their ancient dance. Hours have passed since you began this journey. Hours spent walking through quiet streets and listening to water and contemplating the mystery of human love and loss. But time feels different here. Fluid, circular rather than linear. Past and present exist together. The woman's story happened long ago and is happening now, and will happen again in the future. This is how legends work. They exist outside normal time. They are always present, always relevant, always true in ways that go deeper than historical fact. The earth beneath you is solid and warm, reassuring, eternal. The heart of her story. Not just the loss of her children, but the loss of hope itself. The inability to see past immediate suffering to the possibility of healing and renewal. But legends have a way of restoring what was lost. Through story, her hope is renewed. Through retelling, her love is affirmed. Through memory, her children live forever. Through warning, other children are protected. Through transformation, tragedy becomes teaching. Through persistence, ending becomes beginning. A shooting star streaks across the sky above you, brief, beautiful, gone almost before you can fully register its presence. But its light lingers in your memory, and in that lingering it becomes eternal. This is how the important moments work. They pass quickly, but their significance endures. They become part of the stories we tell ourselves about what matters. The woman's life was like that shooting star, brief in historical terms but brilliant in its impact. Her story has outlasted empires. It has survived conquests and colonizations, and countless attempts to replace old beliefs with new ones. It persists because it speaks to something universal in human experience, something that transcends culture and time and geographical boundaries. You sit up and look around. The cornfield stretches in all directions, a sea of growing things reaching toward the sky. Each plant is individual but part of a larger whole, each stalk unique but connected to all the others through roots that share the same soil, through leaves that share the same air, through purposes that share the same goal of growth and fruiting and continuation. This is how human stories work too. Each one individual but part of a larger pattern. Each one unique but connected to all the others through shared experiences of love and loss and hope and fear. The woman's story is her own, but also everyone's. Her grief is specific but also universal. Her transformation is personal but also collective. The sky continues to lighten almost imperceptibly. Dawn is still far away, but its approach can be felt in subtle changes. The quality of darkness, the behavior of night sounds, the way the air moves differently. Change is coming, but slowly, gently, without violence or suddenness. This is how healing happens too. Not all at once, but gradually. Not through forgetting, but through integration. Not by eliminating pain, but by transforming it into something useful. Of stories about what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to lose, what it means to continue despite impossible pain. You begin walking back toward town. The corn rustles farewell around you. The earth releases you reluctantly. The stars watch your departure with ancient patience. All of these will be here when you return. All of these will continue their quiet work of supporting life and storing stories, and connecting past with future. The fields give way to gardens. Houses become more frequent. Streetlights create pools of yellow warmth in the gentle darkness. You are returning to civilization, but carrying the wildness with you, the openness, the sense of connection to something larger and older and more mysterious than everyday life. This is what good stories do. They take you away from your normal reality and then bring you back transformed. They show you different ways of seeing, different ways of understanding, different ways of being in the world. They expand your capacity for empathy and wonder and acceptance of mystery. You pass the church again. The light still glows through its windows. Someone is still inside, still keeping vigil, still maintaining connection with the sacred in the midst of ordinary night. This dedication is its own kind of legend, its own story of persistence and faith and commitment to something beyond the visible world. Faith takes many forms. The woman in the legend had faith in love until that faith was broken. But perhaps her story itself represents a different kind of faith. Faith that meaning can be found in suffering, that transformation is possible even after the worst losses, that love persists even when its original form is destroyed. You reach the bridge again. The water below continues its patient journey toward the sea. It has carried your story with it as you walked and thought and felt your way through the night. Now it carries new understanding, new appreciation for the complexity of human experience, new respect for the power of legends to teach and heal and connect. Standing on the bridge, you realize something important. The woman's story is not finished. It continues every time someone tells it, every time someone hears it and understands something new about love or loss, or the fierce protectiveness of mothers. Every time someone learns to be more careful around water, or more gentle interpretation between what happened and what it means. You continue across the bridge and back into the sleeping town. The streets welcome you like old friends. The buildings stand ready to shelter new stories. The plaza waits patiently for another day of life and laughter, and the ordinary miracles that happen when people gather together. But you carry the night with you now. The darkness and the stars and the growing things and the flowing water. You carry the woman's story not as entertainment, but as wisdom, as reminder, as connection to all the mothers and children and lovers and dreamers who have walked these streets before you, and will walk them after you are gone. The fountain in the plaza still sings its quiet song, still creates ripples that spread outward in perfect circles, still reflects the sky and holds the light, and offers refreshment to all who approach with open hearts. It has heard countless stories. It will hear countless more. It remains constant while everything around it changes. You sit once more on its warm stone edge. The night's journey is nearly complete. Soon you will need to return to your ordinary life with its ordinary concerns and ordinary pleasures, but you will never be exactly the same. The legend has become part of you. The woman's story has joined the collection of stories that make you who you are. This is how legends achieve immortality, not by being preserved in books or museums, but by living in human hearts, by being passed from person to person like precious gifts, by teaching each new generation something essential about what it means to be alive and conscious, and capable of both great love and great loss. The water in the fountain catches the light and throws it back in gentle sparkles. Each sparkle is brief but beautiful, each one a small celebration of the way light and water can dance together, each one a reminder that beauty persists even in darkness, even in sorrow, even in the midst of stories too sad for easy comfort. You close your eyes and listen to the fountain's song one last time. In its rhythm, you hear the heartbeat of the town, the breathing of its sleeping inhabitants, the dreams that flow from house to house like underground rivers, the hopes that rise like mist from the warm earth, the love that endures despite everything that tries to diminish it. When you open your eyes, the first hint of dawn is touching the eastern horizon. Not sunrise yet, but the promise of sunrise. The suggestion that light will return, that a new threat or supernatural occurrence, but as part of the great human story that includes all of us. Her love and loss and transformation are woven into the fabric of experience that connects every parent to every child, every dreamer to every dream, every heart to every other heart that has ever known the weight of caring deeply. You begin walking toward the edge of town where your own ordinary life waits for your return. But you carry the night with you, the stories and the stars and the flowing water and the growing things and the patient stones that have witnessed so much and remember everything, and continue to shelter new stories, even as old ones echo in their shadows. The legend of La Llorona is no longer just something you heard, but something you have experienced, something you have walked through and felt and made part of your own understanding. It will change as you change. It will grow as you grow. It will teach you new things as you encounter new experiences that connect to its eternal themes: love and loss, protection and vulnerability, the fierce devotion of mothers, the fragility of children, the way tragedy can transform into wisdom, the way individual suffering can become collective teaching, the way stories can carry truth that facts alone cannot contain. These themes will accompany you as you return to daylight. They will inform your understanding of the news you read and the people you meet and the choices you make. They will remind you to be gentle with those who are struggling, to appreciate those you love while you have them, to recognize that every person carries stories of both joy and sorrow. The eastern sky grows brighter as you walk. Birds begin their morning songs. The air fills with the scent of baking bread as early rising bakers begin their work. The world prepares for another day of the beautiful, complicated, heartbreaking, hope-filled business of being human. But night will return, and with it the time for stories, the time for legends, the time for exploring the mysteries that daylight cannot fully illuminate, the time for remembering that we are all connected by experiences larger than our individual lives, all part of stories that began before we were born and will continue long after we are gone. The woman who became La Llorona understood this connection. In her transformation from individual person to eternal presence, she became part of the great story that includes all mothers and all children, and all who have ever loved so deeply that loss has come full circle. The stars that watched you start your exploration of the legend are still there, still shining, still patient. They have seen you change. They have witnessed your transformation from someone who heard a story to someone who has lived a story. The legend of La Llorona is yours now, not to own but to carry, not to possess but to share, not to solve but to honor. It will be with you in quiet moments when you remember the woman by the water, in busy moments when you notice mothers protecting their children, in sad moments when you understand that love and loss are inseparable companions. And perhaps, on some future night when the stars are bright and the air is still, and the boundary between past and present grows thin, you will tell this story to someone else. You will pass on the legend as it was passed to you. You will keep alive the memory of the woman whose love was so great it transcended death itself. In this way she continues. In this way her children live forever. In this way her tragedy becomes teaching. In this way her ending becomes beginning. In this way the legend lives on, carried from heart to heart, from story to story, from one seeker of understanding to another. The night releases you gently. The legend remains. The water continues flowing. The stars continue shining. The corn continues growing. The love continues loving. And somewhere, in the space between sleeping and waking, between memory and dream, between what was and what might be, the woman continues her eternal watch over all who are vulnerable and precious, and in need of protection. Her tears have become rain that waters the earth. Her voice has become wind that carries seeds to new places. Her love has become legend that teaches and protects and endures. She is no longer just one woman, but all women. No longer just one mother, but all mothers. No longer just one story, but the story that contains all other stories, about what it means to love completely, and lose deeply, and somehow, miraculously, continue. This is the mystery at the heart of the legend. This is the truth it holds like water holds light. This is the gift it offers to all who approach with open hearts and patient listening, and willingness to be changed by the stories that have the power to transform tragedy into teaching, ending into beginning, individual experience, harvest. The legend of La Llorona is such a story. Eternal and ever-changing, individual and universal, tragic and hopeful, ending and beginning. Human and more than human. Real and more than real. True in ways that go deeper than fact, wider than history, longer than time itself. And now it is yours to carry forward, into the light of day and the promise of new stories yet to be told. New understandings yet to be reached, new connections yet to be made between all the hearts that have ever loved and lost and somehow, miraculously, found the strength to love again. The sun rises slowly, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. But before the day fully arrives, there is still time for deeper understanding. Still time to explore the hidden layers of the legend that reveal themselves only to those who listen with patient hearts. You find yourself drawn back to the quiet streets, walking once more through the town that has become a map of human experience. Each corner holds new meaning now. Each shadow contains new wisdom. The legend has opened doors in your perception that cannot be closed again. In the growing light, you notice details that escaped you in the darkness. Small shrines built into walls, where candles burn for lost loved ones. Flowers placed carefully on doorsteps, offerings to the memory of children who played in these streets long ago. Photos in windows, faces of grandmothers and grandfathers watching over families they helped to create. This is how grief becomes part of daily life in places where death is understood as transformation rather than ending, where the departed are not gone but present in different ways, where love creates bridges between the world of the living and the world of the remembered. The woman who became La Llorona walks these streets still, but not as the frightening figure of nightmares. She walks as memory made manifest, as love given form, as the eternal mother watching over all children, not just her own. Her presence is felt in the extra care mothers take when walking near water, in the extra attention fathers pay when children play outside, in the extra prayers grandparents whisper when storms approach. You pause outside a small house where an old woman sits on her porch watching the sunrise. Sit beside her on the worn wooden chair that has been placed there for visitors. You settle into its comfortable embrace and watch her hands continue their work. The needles click softly, creating their own quiet music. The yarn flows between her fingers like water, like time itself being shaped into something useful and beautiful. She begins to speak, her voice soft and musical, weathered by years but still strong. She tells you about her own children, grown now and scattered to distant cities, about the grandchildren who visit when they can, about the great-grandchildren she has held in arms that remember holding their grandparents when they were small and new and perfect. Her words weave together with the clicking of her needles to create a tapestry of understanding. She speaks of the way love changes form but never diminishes, of the way mothers carry their children in their hearts long after those children have children of their own, of the way worry and joy intermingle in the experience of loving someone more than you love yourself. She tells you about the night she first heard the legend of La Llorona, when she was a child sitting by her own grandmother's side. How the story frightened her then, as it was meant to do. How it kept her close to home when darkness fell. How it taught her to respect the power of water and the importance of staying where her mother could see her. But as she grew older, she began to understand the deeper teachings hidden within the fear. The story was not really about a dangerous ghost, but about the fierce love of mothers, about the way that love can become so intense it outlasts death itself, about the way tragedy can transform into protection for others. The sun climbs higher as she speaks, warming the air and bringing the sounds of the town awakening. Children's voices drift from nearby houses as families begin their morning routines. The smell of coffee and fresh tortillas mingles with the scent of flowers blooming in carefully tended gardens. This is the world the legend serves to protect. These ordinary moments of extraordinary love. These simple rituals of care and connection. These daily acts of devotion that bind families together across generations and create the foundation upon which communities are built. The old woman's knitting grows longer with each passing minute. What began as a small rectangle of stitches is becoming a scarf, a blanket, a gift for someone she loves. Her hand that can drive a person to make choices they never imagined possible. Her son did recover, she says with quiet gratitude. He grew up strong and healthy, and eventually moved away to start his own family. But she never forgot the feeling of almost losing him, the way time seemed to stop, the way the world narrowed down to just the sound of his breathing and the movement of her needles, and the prayers that rose from her heart like smoke from incense. That experience taught her something important about the woman in the legend, about how love can become so intense it feels dangerous, about how the desire to protect can become overwhelming, about how grief can make the impossible seem necessary and the unthinkable seem reasonable. The old woman looks at you with eyes that have seen much sorrow and much joy, often intermingled in ways that defy easy understanding. She speaks of the complexity of motherhood, the way it expands your capacity for both love and worry, the way it makes you simultaneously stronger and more vulnerable than you ever imagined possible. She tells you about the mothers she has known who lost children, how they carried their grief with dignity and grace, how they found ways to honor their lost ones through service to other families, how they transformed their personal tragedy into communal wisdom, how they became the ones other mothers turned to in times of crisis. This, she says, is the true meaning of La Llorona's story. Not punishment, but transformation. Not warning, but wisdom. Not ending, but beginning. The woman's love was so great it could not be contained by death. Her loss was so profound, it became a force that protects other children from similar fates. The needles continue their gentle clicking as the old woman's words sink into your consciousness, like seeds into fertile soil. You begin to understand that the legend operates on multiple levels simultaneously. It is cautionary tale and spiritual teaching. It is individual story and collective wisdom. It is ancient truth and contemporary relevance. Children need boundaries, she explains. They need to understand that the world contains both beauty and danger. They need to learn respect for forces larger than themselves. The legend of La Llorona provides these teachings wrapped in story form that children can understand and remember. But adults need different teachings. They need to understand the weight of responsibility that comes with loving someone completely. They need to recognize the signs of desperation in themselves and others. They need words and work. Through the sharing of stories while engaged in the tasks of daily life, she tells you about her own grandmother, who taught her both to knit and to understand the deeper meanings of old stories, how they would sit together in the evenings, working on projects that would warm their family through the winter months, how the rhythm of their needles created a peaceful space where difficult topics could be discussed without fear or judgment. Her grandmother had lived through revolution and war. She had seen families torn apart and put back together in new configurations. She had witnessed acts of cruelty and acts of kindness that defied explanation. Through it all, she had maintained her faith in the fundamental goodness of human nature and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. These experiences, the old woman says, gave her grandmother a perspective on the legend of La Llorona that was both practical and profound. She understood that the story served multiple purposes. It kept children safe by teaching them to be cautious around water. It reminded adults of their responsibilities as parents and community members. It honored the universal experience of loss while affirming the eternal nature of love. The old woman pauses in her knitting and looks out at the street where children are beginning to appear, walking to school with books and lunches, and the infinite possibility that each new day brings. She watches them with the particular attention of someone who has spent decades caring for young people. She notices which ones seem happy and which ones seem troubled, which ones walk with confidence, and which ones seem uncertain. This habit of observation, she explains, is part of what it means to be a keeper of community stories. To understand that every child belongs to all adults, not just their parents. To recognize that the safety and well-being of young people is everyone's responsibility. To know that the lessons embedded in old legends remain relevant because human nature remains essentially unchanged. She tells you about the time she saw a young mother struggling with her toddler near the fountain in the plaza. The child was tired and cranky, the mother was clearly overwhelmed, and the situation was escalating toward public breakdown. Without hesitation, the old woman approached and offered to help. She had no official authority or relationship to the family, but she understood that community means caring for each other. Together, they calm threatening ghost, but as reminder of collective responsibility, not as punishment for individual failure, but as call to community action, not as source of fear, but as inspiration for protective care. The needles resume their gentle rhythm as she continues speaking. She tells you about the changes she has witnessed in her long life, how families have become more scattered, how communities have become less connected, how children spend more time with screens and less time with stories, how the old ways of passing down wisdom are being challenged by new technologies and changing lifestyles. But she also speaks of continuities, how love remains constant even when its expression changes, how parents continue to worry about their children regardless of the specific dangers they face, how communities continue to need ways of sharing values and teaching important lessons, how stories continue to serve essential functions in human society. The legend of La Llorona has adapted to these changes, she explains. In some places, she is said to appear near busy roads, warning children about traffic dangers. In others, she watches over playgrounds and schools, protecting against modern threats. In still others, she appears to adults struggling with depression or addiction, offering hope for transformation and renewal. This adaptability is part of what makes legends powerful and enduring. They contain truths flexible enough to apply to new situations while maintaining their essential core. They speak to universal human experiences that transcend specific cultural or historical contexts. They provide frameworks for understanding that can be applied to whatever challenges each generation faces. The old woman sets down her knitting and reaches for a small basket beside her chair. From it, she takes pieces of fruit and bread, which she shares with you in the ancient gesture of hospitality. Eating together, she explains, is one of the most fundamental human activities. It creates bonds. It establishes trust. It transforms strangers into friends and friends into family. As you share this simple meal, she tells you about the role of food in traditional storytelling, how the best stories were often told around dinner tables or in kitchens where families gathered to prepare meals together, how the act of feeding people created the perfect atmosphere for sharing wisdom and passing down cultural knowledge. She speaks of her own kitchen, where 4 generations of women have learned to cook traditional dishes, where responsibility of keeping their children safe, sometimes as a reminder to adults that their actions have consequences that ripple outward in ways they cannot always predict or control. Each telling has been slightly different, shaped by the specific needs of the audience and the particular wisdom of the storyteller. But the core message has remained constant: love deeply, protect fiercely, understand that parenthood changes you in fundamental ways. Recognize that community support is essential for raising healthy children. Remember that some losses are so profound, they reshape reality around themselves. The old woman finishes eating and returns to her knitting. The project in her hands is clearly taking shape now. You can see that it will become a blanket, carefully crafted to provide warmth and comfort to someone she loves. Each stitch represents time and attention and care. Each row builds upon the one before it to create something both functional and beautiful. This process, she explains, mirrors the way legends develop over time. Each telling adds something new while building upon the foundation created by previous versions. Each storyteller brings their own understanding and experience to the narrative. Each audience receives the story through the filter of their own needs and circumstances. Over the generations, the legend of La Llorona has been enriched by countless contributions. Details have been added or changed to reflect local geography and customs. Interpretations have evolved to address contemporary concerns. New applications have been discovered for ancient wisdom. The story has grown more complex and nuanced while remaining recognizably itself. The old woman tells you about her role in this ongoing evolution, how she has modified certain aspects of the story based on her own experiences and observations, how she emphasizes different elements depending on whether she is speaking to children or adults, to new mothers or experienced parents, to people facing specific challenges or general audiences. She has learned to read her listeners carefully, watching for signs of how the story is being received and adjusting her telling accordingly. When speaking to overly fearful parents, she emphasizes the protective aspects of the legend. When addressing children who seem too reckless, she highlights the cautionary elements. When talking with people who have experienced loss, she focuses on themes of transformation and continuity. This sensitivity to audience is part of what makes a good storyteller, she explains. Beginning their daily rounds, the everyday music of a community going about its business. This is the world that legends serve to protect and preserve, these ordinary moments of extraordinary meaning. The old woman looks up from her knitting and studies your face with the particular attention of someone who has spent a lifetime reading people. She sees something there that satisfies her, some evidence that the night's journey and this morning's conversation have accomplished their purpose, some sign that you understand not just the story but its deeper implications. She tells you that you have become a carrier of the legend now, not through any formal ceremony or official appointment, but through the simple act of listening with an open heart and receiving the story with respect and understanding. This responsibility is both gift and burden. Gift because it connects you to something larger than yourself. Burden because it requires you to use this knowledge wisely. As a carrier of the legend, you have certain obligations to tell the story accurately while allowing it to evolve appropriately, to understand its multiple layers of meaning and share them as circumstances require, to recognize its power and use that power to help rather than harm, to honor the woman whose tragedy became teaching and whose love became legend. The old woman reaches into her basket again and withdraws a small object wrapped in soft cloth. She unwraps it carefully, revealing a hand-carved figure of a woman. The carving is simple but beautiful, worn smooth by generations of handling. The woman's face expresses both sorrow and love, perfectly capturing the complex emotions at the heart of the legend. This figure, she explains, was carved by her great-grandfather many years ago. It has been passed down through her family as a reminder of the story's importance and a symbol of their role as its guardians. She has carried it with her for decades, touching it during difficult times, drawing strength from its representation of love that transcends death. Now, she says, it is time for the figure to find a new guardian. She places it in your hands with ceremony and solemnity. The wood is warm and smooth, shaped by countless fingers into something both artistic and sacred. You can feel the weight of responsibility that comes with accepting this gift. The old woman explains the proper care of such an object. It should be kept in a place of honor but not hidden away. It should be touched regularly but handled seemed too heavy to bear. The carved woman seemed to understand all these struggles, seemed to offer silent support and encouragement. This is how sacred objects work, she explains. They become repositories of faith and memory. They hold the accumulated prayers and hopes of all who have touched them. They serve as bridges between the visible and invisible worlds. They remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. The figure in your hands carries all these qualities. It has absorbed decades of devotion and care. It has witnessed countless retellings of the legend. It has been present during moments of teaching and learning and transformation. Now it brings all that history into your life, and your responsibility as a story carrier. The old woman's knitting is nearly finished now. The blanket has reached its intended size and needs only final touches to complete it. Her hands move with practiced efficiency, securing loose ends and smoothing rough edges. Soon it will be ready to provide warmth and comfort to whoever receives it. She tells you that this blanket is destined for a new great-grandchild, due to arrive in the coming months. She has been working on it for weeks, putting love into every stitch. When the baby is born, this blanket will be there to welcome them into the world. It will carry with it all the care and attention and hope that went into its creation. This is how love manifests in practical ways, she explains, through acts of service and creation, through the investment of time and effort in things that will outlast the giver, through the transformation of simple materials into objects of beauty and utility, through the connection of past and future in present acts of devotion. The blanket will carry forward the old woman's love long after she is gone. The child who receives it will grow up wrapped in that love, even if they never fully understand its source. They will sleep more peacefully, play more confidently, venture into the world more courageously because of the protection this blanket represents. This is similar to how the legend of La Llorona functions, she explains. It wraps children in layers of protection. It creates boundaries that keep them safe. It provides comfort during frightening times. It connects them to the love and care of previous generations who faced similar challenges and found ways to survive and thrive. The sun has reached its full morning strength now, banishing the last shadows from the porch where you sit. The temperature is of growth and dormancy, reflect the larger rhythms of life and death and renewal. In her garden, she has planted flowers mentioned in various versions of the legend, water lilies that bloom in small pools, willows that trail their branches like tears, marigolds that honor the memory of the dead. Each plant carries its own symbolic meaning, while contributing to the overall beauty and harmony of the space. This garden serves multiple purposes, she explains. It provides food for her family and flowers for her home. It creates a peaceful space for reflection and prayer. It attracts beneficial insects and birds that contribute to the local ecosystem. It demonstrates the possibility of creating beauty and abundance through patient care and wise stewardship. But perhaps most importantly, it serves as a living reminder of the lessons embedded in the legend, that love requires constant tending, that growth takes time and cannot be rushed, that beauty often emerges from apparent death or dormancy, that each season brings its own gifts and challenges, that continuity depends on the willingness to plant seeds we may not live to see mature. The old woman sets aside her finished blanket and stretches her hands, working out the stiffness that comes from hours of repetitive motion. Her face shows satisfaction with work completed and gift prepared. Soon she will wrap this blanket carefully and store it safely until it is needed. Then it will begin its own journey of service and love. She stands slowly, with the careful movements of someone who has learned to respect the limitations of an aging body, while refusing to surrender to them entirely. She invites you to walk with her through the garden, to see up close the plants she has described, and to understand their connection to the stories she keeps. As you move among the carefully tended beds, she points out specific plants and explains their significance. The roses that represent the beauty of love, the herbs that can heal physical and emotional wounds, the vines that demonstrate how growth can overcome obstacles, the trees that provide shade and shelter for future generations. Each plant has been chosen deliberately, placed thoughtfully, cared for consistently. The garden reflects a lifetime of accumulated wisdom about what thrives in this particular soil and climate. It shows the results of patient observation and careful experimentation. It demonstrates the rewards of long-term thinking and sustainable practices. The old woman tells you that maintaining this garden is her way of honoring the legend, and all it are just beginning to open, revealing pristine white petals that seem to glow in the morning light. Fish move lazily beneath the plants, creating gentle ripples that catch and scatter the sunlight. This pool, she explains, serves as her personal shrine to the woman in the legend. It provides the element of water that is central to all versions of the story. It creates a peaceful space for contemplation and prayer. It attracts beneficial wildlife that adds life and movement to the garden. It reflects the sky and changing light throughout the day. She comes here often, she says, especially when facing difficult decisions or painful emotions. The combination of water and growing things and natural beauty creates an environment conducive to healing and insight. The pool reminds her that even in the midst of sorrow, life continues. Even after great loss, new growth is possible. Even when everything seems frozen, spring will come again. The old woman kneels carefully beside the pool and touches the water with her fingertips. The surface breaks into concentric circles that spread outward until they reach the edges and bounce back toward the center. She explains that this is how the legend works. Each telling creates ripples that spread through the community, touching lives in ways we cannot always see or predict. Sometimes those ripples reach people who desperately need the story's lessons. Sometimes they provide comfort to those who are grieving. Sometimes they offer guidance to those facing difficult choices. Sometimes they simply remind people that they are not alone in their struggles. The story continues to spread, continue to teach, continue to heal long after the original teller has fallen silent. Standing beside the pool, you feel the full weight of responsibility that comes with carrying such a story. You understand that you have become part of a chain of transmission that stretches back generations, and will continue forward into the future. You are no longer just a listener, but a guardian of something precious and powerful. The old woman seems to sense your realization. She nods approvingly and tells you that this moment of understanding is crucial. It marks the transition from passive recipient to active participant in the story's ongoing life. From this point forward, you will begin to notice opportunities to share the legend appropriately. You will recognize when someone needs its lessons. You will feel the responsibility to keep it alive and relevant. She warns universal aspects of human experience that remain constant despite technological advances and social changes. It addresses fundamental questions about love and loss and responsibility that every generation must answer for itself. The old woman leads you back toward the house, walking slowly through the garden paths she has walked countless times before. Each step seems deliberate and meaningful, part of a daily ritual that connects her to the cycles of growth and change that govern all life. She moves with the careful attention of someone who understands that every moment is precious and temporary. As you reach the porch where your conversation began, she pauses and looks back at her garden with obvious affection and pride. This space represents decades of work and planning and care. It embodies her values and reflects her understanding of what makes life beautiful and meaningful. It serves as her legacy to future generations and her gift to the present community. She tells you that gardens, like legends, require constant tending. They cannot be created once and then forgotten. They need regular attention, seasonal adjustments, protection from threats, and faith in their continued importance. They reward patient care with beauty and abundance, but they punish neglect with decay and loss. The legend of La Llorona is like this garden, she explains. It needs people who will tend it carefully, share it wisely, and adapt it thoughtfully to changing circumstances. It needs guardians who understand both its power and its fragility. It needs carriers who respect its origins while allowing it to grow and evolve. You are now one of those guardians and carriers. The carved figure in your hands represents this new role and the obligations that come with it. The story you have received contains seeds that can grow into wisdom and healing and protection for others. Your responsibility is to plant those seeds where they can take root and flourish. The morning is advancing, and the old woman's daily routines are calling. But before you part, she has one final gift to share. From her pocket, she produces a small notebook, its pages yellowed with age and filled with careful handwriting. This, she explains, contains various versions of the legend that she has collected over the years, along with her own observations about their meanings and applications. She offers you this notebook not as rigid text to be memorized, but as resource and inspiration for your own storytelling. Relevant. This is how ancient wisdom addresses contemporary challenges. You accept the notebook with gratitude and reverence, understanding that it represents not just information, but tradition. The careful handwriting shows hours of patient recording and reflection. The detailed notes reveal decades of thoughtful consideration about the story's meanings and implications. The marginalia demonstrate an active engagement with the material that goes far beyond passive preservation. The old woman watches with satisfaction as you handle the notebook respectfully. She sees that you understand its value and will treat it appropriately. This gives her confidence that the story will continue to be well served in your hands. She has fulfilled her obligation to pass on what she has received and learned. Now, the responsibility shifts to you. She tells you that your journey with the legend is just beginning. Over time, you will discover new depths in the story and new applications for its wisdom. You will find your own voice as a storyteller and develop your own insights into its meanings. You will add your own experiences and observations to the ongoing evolution of the legend. This process cannot be rushed or forced. It develops naturally through repeated engagement with the story and regular opportunities to share it with others. Each telling will teach you something new. Each audience will help you understand different aspects of the legend's power and relevance. Each conversation about the story will deepen your own comprehension of its truths. The old woman's final advice is simple but profound. Listen more than you speak. Observe more than you judge. Love more than you fear. These principles will guide you well as you take on the responsibility of carrying the legend forward. They will help you recognize when and how to share the story appropriately. They will protect you from misusing its power or distorting its message. As you prepare to leave, the old woman returns to her chair on the porch. Her knitting basket sits beside her, ready for the next project. Her garden waits for its daily care and attention. Her routine of tending and creating and preserving continues, as it has for decades, and will until she can no longer maintain it. But now she has shared part of her burden and responsibility with you. The legend has one more guardian, one more carrier, one more voice to keep it alive in the world. This gives her satisfaction and peace. She has done her part to ensure continuity. She has passed on what was entrusted. You're back as you make your way through the quiet streets. The town is fully awake now, busy with the activities of daily life. Children walk to school with bright backpacks and cheerful conversations. Adults hurry to work with purposeful steps and focused expressions. The ordinary business of living continues, sustained and protected by stories that most people carry without fully understanding their importance. You see this community differently now. You recognize the invisible threads that connect past to present to future. You understand the role that legends play in maintaining social cohesion and cultural continuity. You appreciate the wisdom of systems that preserve important knowledge through story rather than formal instruction. The legend of La Llorona is woven into the fabric of this place in ways both obvious and subtle. It influences how parents supervise their children near water. It affects how the community responds to families in crisis. It shapes attitudes toward mental health and the support systems available to those who are struggling. It provides a framework for understanding tragedy and loss that emphasizes transformation rather than despair. This influence is largely unconscious and indirect, operating through shared assumptions and collective wisdom rather than explicit rules or policies. But it is no less real or important for being subtle. It represents the accumulation of generations of human experience and reflection, distilled into narrative form that can be transmitted across time and space. As you walk, you begin to notice signs of the legend's presence that you missed before. A small shrine by a bridge, with flowers that are regularly renewed by unknown hands. A warning sign near a pond that shows unusual care in its wording and placement. A mural on a wall that depicts a woman watching over children at play. These physical markers reflect the story's integration into the community's landscape and consciousness. You also begin to see potential applications for the legend's teachings in contemporary contexts. The story's emphasis on community responsibility could address current problems with social isolation and disconnection. Its recognition of the complex relationship between love and loss could help people process grief and trauma more effectively. Its understanding of the way individual actions affect others could inform discussions about social responsibility and collective well-being. But you also recognize that sharing these insights requires sensitivity and skill. The legend's power comes partly from its indirect approach to teaching. It works through metaphor and symbol rather than direct instruction. It allows listeners to possibility and challenge. You breathe deeply, taking in not just the physical aromas but the sense of continuity and hope they represent. This community has faced countless difficulties over the generations, but it has found ways to survive and thrive and maintain its essential character. The legend of La Llorona has been part of that survival and continuity. It has helped people process traumatic experiences and difficult emotions. It has provided frameworks for understanding complex moral and psychological situations. It has created bonds of shared knowledge and common reference points that strengthen community cohesion. It has connected individuals to something larger than their personal concerns and immediate circumstances. Now you are part of that tradition. You carry responsibility for maintaining and transmitting something valuable and irreplaceable. This is both honor and burden, privilege and obligation. It connects you to countless previous carriers of the story, while charging you with its preservation for future generations. The weight of this responsibility is balanced by the knowledge that you are not alone in carrying it. The old woman continues her work of tending and preserving. Other guardians exist in other places, each contributing their own understanding and effort to the story's ongoing life. The legend itself has proven its resilience and adaptability over centuries of transmission and evolution. Your role is important but not overwhelming. You are asked to do your part, not to carry the entire burden alone. You are expected to contribute your own insights and experiences while respecting the wisdom of previous generations. You are charged with faithful transmission while allowing for appropriate adaptation and growth. As you reach the edge of town where your night's journey began, you pause and look back at the community that has given you so much. The houses and streets and gardens and people represent more than physical space or social organization. They embody values and traditions and ways of understanding that have been developed and refined over generations of shared experience. The legend of La Llorona is both product and protector of this cultural wealth. It emerged from the community's need to process and understand certain aspects of human experience. It has been shaped by the community's wisdom and values. In turn, it has influenced and guided the community's responses to similar experiences in subsequent generations. This reciprocal relationship between story and community demonstrates the dynamic nature of cultural transmission. You discover will become part of the story's ongoing evolution. The way you tell it will influence how others understand and use it. The contexts in which you share it will expand its reach and relevance. This is how cultural knowledge grows and deepens over time. Each generation adds its own layer of understanding and experience to what has been received from previous generations. Each individual contributor becomes part of a collective enterprise that is larger and more enduring than any single person's involvement. The sun climbs higher, warming the earth and awakening the full range of daytime sounds and activities. Your night's journey through legend and understanding is drawing to a close, but your ongoing relationship with the story is just beginning. You have received a gift that will continue to reveal new dimensions of meaning and application throughout your life. The carved figure in your pocket serves as a reminder of this ongoing journey. The notebook in your hands provides resources for deeper exploration and understanding. The story itself, now planted in your consciousness, will grow and develop in ways you cannot yet predict or fully imagine. As you prepare to return to your ordinary life and responsibilities, you carry with you an expanded understanding of what it means to be part of a community that values and preserves important stories. You have glimpsed the invisible networks of care and transmission that maintain cultural continuity across generations. You have experienced the transformation that occurs when we truly listen to wisdom that has been tested by time and experience. The legend of La Llorona will accompany you now in ways both conscious and unconscious. It will influence how you think about love and responsibility and loss. It will affect how you understand the relationship between individual actions and collective well-being. It will inform your responses to situations involving vulnerable people who need protection and support. But perhaps most importantly, it will remind you that you are part of something larger than yourself, part of a community that extends across time and space, part of a tradition that values wisdom and compassion, and the careful preservation of knowledge that serves human flourishing, part of an ongoing story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. This perspective brings both humility and courage. Humility because it reminds you of your small place in the vast sweep of human experience. Courage because it assures you that your individual contributions matter and will be preserved and carried forward by others who share your commitment to important values and essential stories. The morning sun shines ending, but as beginning. Not as conclusion, but as invitation to ongoing exploration of the mysteries that make life meaningful and love eternal. But before you reach your destination, the path leads you through another part of town you have not yet explored. Here the buildings are different, newer in some places, more weathered in others. This is where different generations of the community have left their marks, where old and new exist side by side in the comfortable coexistence that marks healthy, growing places. You pass a small school where children's artwork decorates the windows. Bright paintings of families and animals and rainbows, created with the innocent joy that comes before self-consciousness teaches us to doubt our creative abilities. Among these cheerful images, you notice several that seem to echo themes from the legend you have been exploring. A painting of a woman in flowing dress standing by blue water. Another showing a mother holding children close while storm clouds gather overhead. A third depicting a figure that might be human or might be spirit, watching over a playground where children swing and laugh. These young artists have absorbed the story through the cultural atmosphere of their community, translating ancient wisdom into contemporary expression. This is how legends survive in the modern world, not through formal instruction or academic study, but through the natural process of cultural absorption that occurs when children grow up surrounded by stories that matter. They hear fragments at family gatherings. They see references in artwork and festivals. They absorb values and warnings and hopes through the thousands of small interactions that shape young minds. The school playground is empty now, waiting for the children who will arrive in a few hours to fill it with energy and laughter and the particular kind of chaos that comes when young people gather together. Swings hang motionless in the still air. Slides wait patiently for small bodies to give them purpose. Climbing structures stand ready to challenge growing muscles and developing courage. This playground represents hope and investment in the future. It demonstrates the community's commitment to providing safe spaces where children can develop physically, socially, and emotionally. It embodies the understanding that play is not frivolous activity, but essential work of childhood, preparing young people for the challenges and opportunities they will face as adults. Is smooth from years of use, worn comfortable by countless hours of patient observation and quiet conversation. From this vantage point, you can imagine the playground in full use, children of all ages finding activities suited to their abilities and interests, toddlers exploring sandboxes with intense concentration, school-age kids negotiating complex games with rules that change constantly, teenagers gathering in small groups to share the secrets and concerns that seem overwhelmingly important at their stage of life. Each age group faces different challenges and needs different kinds of protection. Toddlers require constant physical supervision to prevent injury from their enthusiastic but uncoordinated exploration. School-age children need guidance in navigating social relationships and academic pressures. Teenagers benefit from understanding adults who remember what it feels like to be caught between childhood and adulthood. The legend of La Llorona speaks to all these needs. For the youngest children, it provides clear warnings about dangerous places and situations. For school-age kids, it offers lessons about the importance of staying connected to family and community. For teenagers, it demonstrates the long-term consequences of choices made in moments of intense emotion. But the story also serves the adults who care for these children. It reminds parents that their love and worry are normal and necessary. It acknowledges the weight of responsibility that comes with raising another human being. It offers comfort to those who sometimes feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of their task. You think about all the mothers and fathers and teachers and coaches and neighbors who will contribute to the development of the children who play in this space. Each adult brings their own experiences and wisdom to the collective task of nurturing the next generation. Each one carries stories and values that will influence young minds in ways both obvious and subtle. The legend becomes part of this collective wisdom. It joins the thousands of other stories, lessons, warnings, and encouragements that shape how children understand the world and their place in it. It contributes to the complex web of cultural knowledge that every society uses to prepare its young people for productive and meaningful lives. A gentle breeze stirs the air, setting the empty swings in motion. They sway back and forth with hypnotic rhythm, creating their own quiet music as chains creak softly against metal frames. The sound is peaceful and nostalgic, a human story that includes everyone who came before and everyone who will come after. You stand and continue walking, leaving the playground to its patient waiting. The path leads you through a residential area where families are beginning their morning routines. Through windows you can see parents preparing breakfast, children getting ready for school, and the thousand small acts of care that bind families together. In one house, a mother braids her daughter's hair with practiced efficiency, her hands moving in patterns learned from her own mother years ago. In another, a father packs lunches while humming softly to himself, transforming routine task into moment of quiet joy. In a third, grandparents wave goodbye to visiting family, their faces showing the particular contentment that comes from seeing new generations carry forward old traditions. These ordinary moments represent the real work of cultural transmission. Values are passed down not through formal ceremonies but through daily interactions. Children learn what matters by watching how adults behave when they think no one is paying attention. They absorb attitudes and assumptions through the emotional atmosphere of their homes and communities. The legend of La Llorona becomes part of this informal education. It influences how parents talk to children about safety and responsibility. It affects how families process experiences of loss and grief. It provides vocabulary and concepts for discussing complex emotions and difficult situations. It offers hope that even the worst tragedies can lead to positive outcomes. You pass a small market where vendors are setting up for the day's business. Fresh fruits and vegetables create colourful displays that delight the eye and promise nourishment for both body and soul. The scents of ripe tomatoes and fragrant herbs mingle with the aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. This market represents another kind of community gathering place, where people come not just to buy and sell, but to maintain social connections and share information. Vendors and customers exchange news and gossip along with money and goods. Children accompany parents and learn about commerce, agriculture, and the relationships that make community life possible. In settings like this, stories naturally arise and spread. Someone mentions a child who had a close call near water, and the conversation turns to the importance of supervision and the wisdom embedded in old warnings. Someone else shares news of a family facing crisis, and others offer support and practical assistance, guided by values learned from traditional tales. Directly. You stop at one of the fruit stands and purchase an apple from a vendor whose weathered hands speak of decades spent working with growing things. She wraps your purchase carefully and offers a warm smile along with change from your payment. This simple transaction becomes opportunity for human connection, demonstration of mutual respect and appreciation. The vendor notices the carved figure visible in your pocket and nods approvingly. She recognizes it as a symbol of the old stories and the people who keep them alive. Without words, she acknowledges your role and responsibility. This recognition creates bond between strangers, connection based on shared understanding of what matters in their community. As you continue through the market, you notice other subtle signs of the legend's presence. A mother keeps her toddler close while shopping, occasionally checking to make sure the child hasn't wandered toward the fountain at the market's center. A grandmother tells her grandson to stay where she can see him, using tone that suggests this instruction carries weight beyond immediate convenience. These behaviors reflect the practical application of wisdom embedded in traditional stories. The legend has taught generations of parents to be appropriately cautious without being paralyzed by fear. It has provided framework for teaching children about safety while allowing them necessary freedom to explore and learn. The morning market represents the continuation of traditions that stretch back centuries. People have gathered in places like this to trade goods and share news for as long as communities have existed. The specific products and methods may change, but the fundamental human needs for connection and exchange remain constant. Stories like the legend of La Llorona are part of what makes these gatherings meaningful beyond their economic function. They provide shared references that create community identity. They offer common ground for people who might otherwise have little in common. They ensure that important wisdom is preserved and transmitted, even as other aspects of life change rapidly. You leave the market and continue through neighborhoods that show the full range of human experience. Modest homes where families work hard to provide basic necessities. Comfortable houses where success has brought security and opportunity for generosity. Places where different generations live together, sharing resources and wisdom in arrangements that benefit everyone. In each of these settings, the legend serves different but related functions. For struggling families, it offers hope that current difficulties are not permanent and that love can overcome even terrible circumstances. For prosperous households, it reminds occupants of their responsibilities to support those who are less fortunate. Explains its remarkable persistence across time and geography. It contains truths that remain relevant, regardless of specific circumstances. It addresses universal aspects of human experience that transcend economic status, educational background, or personal history. You pause outside a house where music drifts through open windows. Someone is playing guitar and singing in Spanish, their voice carrying melodies that seem both ancient and contemporary. The song speaks of love and loss and hope in language that needs no translation to convey its essential meaning. Music and story have always been closely connected. Both use rhythm and repetition to embed important information in human memory. Both create emotional responses that make their messages more powerful and lasting. Both serve to bind communities together through shared experiences and common references. The legend of La Llorona has inspired countless songs over the generations. Some emphasize its warning aspects, others its protective elements. Some focus on the tragedy, others on the transformation. Each musical interpretation adds new dimension to the story while maintaining its core truths. These songs ensure that the legend reaches people who might not encounter it through other means. They carry the story across geographical and cultural boundaries. They make it accessible to different age groups and learning styles. They demonstrate its continued relevance and vitality in contemporary contexts. The singer's voice fades as you continue walking, but the melody lingers in your memory. It joins the collection of sounds and images and experiences that will forever be associated with your exploration of this legend. It becomes part of your own personal version of the story, adding layers of meaning and emotional resonance. You turn down a street lined with workshops where artisans practice traditional crafts. Through doorways, you can see people weaving textiles, carving wood, shaping clay, and creating objects that serve both practical and aesthetic purposes. Their hands move with the confident efficiency that comes from years of training and practice. These crafts represent another form of cultural preservation. Like stories, they carry forward knowledge and values from previous generations. They demonstrate the possibility of creating beauty from simple materials through patient skill and creative vision. They provide connection to ancestral wisdom and traditional ways of understanding the world. Many of these crafts incorporate imagery and references to water, mourning, or maternal protection, sometimes as abstract patterns that suggest the story's themes without literal depiction. These artistic interpretations serve multiple purposes. They keep the legend visible in the physical environment. They provide opportunities for artists to explore and express their understanding of its meanings. They create objects that can carry the story into new contexts and communities. They demonstrate the story's continued ability to inspire creative response. You stop outside a pottery workshop, where an elderly man shapes clay on a wheel that spins with ancient rhythm. His hands guide the emerging form with gentle pressure, encouraging the clay to become a vessel that will serve practical needs while expressing artistic vision. The process is meditative, almost hypnotic, requiring complete attention and skilled touch. The potter notices your interest and invites you to watch more closely. He explains that creating pottery is like telling stories. Both require patience and practice. Both demand respect for traditional techniques while allowing for personal interpretation. Both transform raw materials into something useful and beautiful through the application of skill and imagination. He shows you pieces he has created that reference the legend of La Llorona, a water jar decorated with flowing patterns that suggest the movement of tears or streams, a bowl whose blue and white glazes evoke the colors of water and moonlight, a figurine that captures the essential gesture of a woman reaching towards something just beyond her grasp. Each piece represents hours of work and years of accumulated skill. The potter has studied the legend carefully, understanding its meanings and appreciating its artistic possibilities. His interpretations add new dimensions to the story while honoring its traditional forms and functions. He tells you that creating these pieces helps him process his own experiences of love and loss. The rhythmic work of shaping clay provides time and space for reflection. The challenge of expressing complex emotions through visual form deepens his understanding of both the story and his own life. This is another way that legends serve the people who engage with them. They provide frameworks for processing personal experiences. They offer language and imagery for expressing feelings that might otherwise remain unexpressed. They create opportunities for creative response that can be both therapeutic and meaningful. The potter's workshop contains shelves filled with pieces in various stages of completion. Telling and retelling, they are shaped and refined. Eventually, they become polished vessels capable of holding and conveying wisdom to future generations. The potter explains that his craft requires patience above all other qualities. Clay cannot be hurried. Firing must be done at the right temperature for the right amount of time. Glazes must be applied carefully and allowed to mature properly. Rushing any step can ruin months of work. Similarly, the process of understanding and integrating legends requires patience. Their meanings reveal themselves gradually through repeated exposure and reflection. Their applications become clear only through lived experience and careful observation. Their wisdom develops over time like slow-maturing wine. You thank the potter for sharing his insights and continue your journey through the artisan quarter. Each workshop offers new perspectives on the relationship between traditional stories and creative expression. Weavers explain how patterns carry historical information. Woodcarvers describe the spiritual significance of their materials. Metalworkers discuss the symbolic meanings of different techniques. All of these crafts share certain characteristics with storytelling. They require mastery of traditional techniques combined with personal vision. They serve both practical and aesthetic functions. They carry cultural information across generations. They create objects that can outlast their creators and continue teaching long after the original maker is gone. The legend of La Llorona benefits from this artistic interpretation and expression. Each new creative work expands its reach and relevance. Each artistic exploration reveals new aspects of its meaning. Each creative response demonstrates its continued ability to inspire and move people. As you leave the artisan quarter, you carry with you a deeper appreciation for the many ways that legends remain alive and vital in contemporary communities. They exist not just in the words of storytellers, but in the hands of artists, the songs of musicians, the patterns of weavers, and the forms of sculptors. This multiplicity of expression ensures that the story reaches people through many different channels and speaks to various learning styles and cultural preferences. It creates redundancy that protects against loss. It provides opportunities for new generations to discover and engage with ancient wisdom through means that resonate with their own interests and abilities. The path now leads you through a park where early morning exercisers are beginning their daily routines. Joggers follow of different ages and backgrounds in shared appreciation for nature and physical activity. The common goal of health and fitness creates bonds that might not exist in other contexts. Conversations arise naturally between strangers who find themselves walking the same paths. In these casual interactions, stories are shared and wisdom is exchanged. Someone mentions their concern about a grandchild's safety habits, and others offer advice based on their own experiences. Someone else describes a recent loss, and listeners respond with comfort and understanding, drawn from traditional sources of wisdom. The legend of La Llorona provides part of the cultural background that informs these conversations. It helps people frame their concerns and responses. It offers language for discussing fears and hopes that might otherwise be difficult to express. It creates common ground for people to connect over shared human experiences. A small pond at the center of the park serves as focal point for many activities. Ducks paddle peacefully across its surface, occasionally diving for food or greeting new arrivals with soft calls. Children will come here later in the day to feed the ducks and watch for turtles sunning themselves on logs. Couples will find quiet benches where they can sit together and enjoy the peaceful atmosphere. Water features like this pond carry special significance in communities where the legend of La Llorona is known. They serve as reminders of the story's central themes while providing opportunities for education and reflection. Parents use them as natural settings for discussing water safety. Storytellers find them perfect backdrops for sharing the legend with new audiences. The pond also demonstrates the positive aspects of water that balance the cautionary elements of the story. Water supports life, provides beauty, creates peaceful environments, and offers opportunities for recreation and reflection. The legend acknowledges water's potential dangers while celebrating its essential role in sustaining all living things. You sit on a bench beside the pond and watch the morning light play across its surface. Small ripples catch and scatter the sunlight, creating patterns that shift and change with each breath of air. Fish occasionally break the surface, sending new circles spreading outward in expanding rings that eventually reach the shore and disappear. This natural display of cause and effect provides perfect metaphor for understanding how legends work in communities. Each telling creates ripples that spread out. Father Duck positions himself between his family and any perceived dangers. Together, they provide protection while encouraging appropriate independence. This natural example of family dynamics illustrates many of the same principles embedded in the legend of La Llorona. The importance of vigilant, but not overprotective, parenting. The need to balance safety with freedom. The way that love manifests through actions rather than just words. The responsibility of both parents to contribute to their children's well-being. Young ducklings occasionally wander too far from their parents and must be called back with urgent quacks. They learn through experience where the boundaries are and why those boundaries matter. They develop confidence through supervised exploration while learning respect for their parents' guidance. Human families face similar challenges in finding the right balance between protection and independence. The legend provides framework for thinking about these issues. It acknowledges the genuine dangers that exist, while warning against the paralysis that can come from excessive fear. It honors parental love, while recognizing the need for children to develop their own judgment and capabilities. The morning exercisers continue their routines around you, each person engaged in their own version of self-care and health maintenance. Some move quickly, seeking to challenge their cardiovascular systems. Others proceed more slowly, focusing on flexibility and balance. All demonstrate commitment to taking responsibility for their own well-being, while enjoying the community atmosphere that makes individual effort more pleasant. This diversity of approaches to common goals reflects one of the strengths of healthy communities. People can pursue similar objectives through different methods, while supporting and encouraging each other. The presence of others provides motivation and accountability, without requiring conformity to identical practices. The legend of La Llorona operates similarly within the community's cultural life. Different people find different meanings and applications in the story. Some emphasize its protective aspects, others its cautionary elements. Some focus on its spiritual dimensions, others on its practical lessons. All contribute to the story's vitality and relevance. As the morning progresses, the park begins to fill with families bringing children to play and explore. The quiet atmosphere of early exercise gradually gives way to the livelier energy of youth and the watchful attention of caring adults. The transition is gradual and natural. Water's edge. This interaction embodies the practical application of wisdom embedded in traditional stories. The mother's behavior reflects understanding of children's natural curiosity, balanced with awareness of potential dangers. She provides supervision without creating anxiety. She teaches respect for nature while allowing for wonder and engagement. The legend of La Llorona has contributed to this mother's approach to parenting, even if she is not consciously thinking about the story. The cultural knowledge it represents has shaped her understanding of appropriate caution around water. It has influenced her awareness of the need for vigilant but not fearful supervision. It has informed her sense of responsibility for her child's safety and development. Other families arrive and spread throughout the park, each finding activities suited to their children's ages and interests. Toddlers gravitate towards sandbox and simple climbing structures. School-age children seek more challenging equipment and opportunities for group play. Teenagers gather in areas where they can socialize while remaining nominally under adult supervision. The park accommodates all these different needs while maintaining atmosphere of safety and community. Design elements and informal rules ensure that activities don't conflict with each other. Adult supervision creates a network of shared responsibility that protects all children while allowing parents some relief from constant vigilance. This shared responsibility reflects values embedded in traditional stories like the legend of La Llorona. The understanding that all adults have obligation to protect all children. The recognition that parenting is community effort rather than purely individual responsibility. The appreciation for the way that collective wisdom can support individual families. You stand and begin walking toward the park's exit, carrying with you observations and insights that add new layers to your understanding of how legends function in living communities. The story is not abstract cultural artifact, but practical wisdom that influences daily behaviors and decisions. It shapes how people interact with each other and with their environment. The path leads you through an older section of town, where the buildings show their age with dignity and grace. These structures have weathered many storms, both literal and metaphorical. They have sheltered multiple generations of families. They have witnessed the full range of human experiences, from births to deaths, from celebrations to sorrows, from ordinary daily routines to extraordinary moments of crisis and triumph. In neighborhoods like this, with new generations, the very walls seem to hold memories of countless bedtime stories, family conversations, and moments of teaching and learning. Children have grown up here hearing fragments of traditional tales mixed with contemporary concerns. They have absorbed cultural knowledge through the natural process of living in community with people who carry that knowledge in their hearts and minds. You pass a house where an elderly woman tends a garden filled with plants that have obvious symbolic significance. Roses for love, herbs for healing, vegetables for sustenance, flowers that attract butterflies and birds. Each plant has been chosen deliberately and cared for with knowledge passed down through generations of gardeners. The woman looks up from her work and nods in greeting. Her earth-stained hands and weather-lined face speak of decades spent in partnership with growing things. She understands the patience required for cultivation, the faith needed to plant seeds in hope of future harvest, the balance between intervention and acceptance that successful gardening requires. These same qualities are essential for anyone who takes responsibility for preserving and transmitting cultural knowledge. Stories, like plants, require proper conditions to flourish. They need people who understand their requirements and are willing to provide consistent care. They reward patience and attention with continued growth and productivity. The woman's garden includes a small shrine where she has placed objects that honor the memory of family members who have died. Photos in weather-resistant frames, candles that are regularly replaced and lit, flowers that are renewed as seasons change, small tokens that represent important relationships and cherished memories. This shrine reflects the understanding that death does not end relationships or erase the influence of those who have gone before. It demonstrates the continuity that connects past, present, and future in ongoing web of love and responsibility. It provides focus for grief, gratitude, and ongoing connection to those who continue to matter despite their physical absence. The legend of La Llorona operates within this same framework of understanding. The woman in the story may have died, but her love and concern continue. Her tragedy becomes teaching. Her loss becomes protection for others. Her individual experience becomes universal wisdom that serves all who encounter it. As you continue through this neighborhood, you notice other signs of the way past and present interweave in healthy communities. Modern additions, they adapt to new circumstances while maintaining their essential wisdom. They provide stability and continuity in the midst of constant change. You reach a small plaza where several streets converge. In its center stands a fountain similar to the one where your night's journey began, but smaller and more intimate. Water flows quietly from a simple spout into a circular basin where coins glint beneath the surface. People have made wishes here, adding their hopes to the countless desires that have been offered to water throughout human history. This fountain serves as informal community gathering place. People sit on its edge while waiting for buses or friends. Children play nearby while parents visit with neighbors. Elderly residents find it a convenient meeting spot for social activities. The constant presence of water creates peaceful atmosphere that encourages reflection and conversation. The legend of La Llorona feels especially appropriate in settings like this. Places where water brings people together rather than separating them. Where the life-giving and community-building aspects of water are celebrated alongside proper respect for its power. Where traditional wisdom can be shared in natural, unforced ways. You sit beside the fountain and listen to its gentle music. The sound is hypnotic and calming, creating space for meditation and remembrance. The water's movement catches and reflects light, creating patterns that shift and change but maintain underlying harmony and rhythm. This constancy within change mirrors the way that legends function over time. Surface details may vary from telling to telling, but essential truths remain stable. New applications may be discovered, but core wisdom endures. Contemporary interpretations may emerge, but ancient insights continue to serve. A young couple approaches the fountain, holding hands and speaking quietly together. They seem to be discussing important decisions, weighing options and considering consequences with the seriousness that comes with genuine mutual care. Their conversation is private, but their body language speaks of trust and shared commitment. Watching them, you think about the different stages of life and the various ways that legends serve people as they grow and change. Young couples like these may find in the story warnings about the importance of communication and mutual support during difficult times. They may discover lessons about the way that individual choices affect not just themselves, but their partners and any children they might have. Parents would find different applications. For ongoing collection of human interactions. Like ripples on water, their words and gestures have become part of the place's accumulated experience and memory. A child runs up to the fountain, followed by a slightly out-of-breath grandmother who calls gently for caution around the water. The child obeys immediately, stepping back from the edge but continuing to watch the water with fascination. The grandmother joins the child and begins pointing out interesting details. Fish swimming in the basin, patterns of light and shadow, the way coins catch and scatter sunlight. This interaction demonstrates the natural way that water safety education occurs in communities where the legend of La Llorona is part of cultural knowledge. Children learn appropriate caution without developing paralyzing fear. They discover respect for water's power while appreciating its beauty. They absorb lessons through positive experiences rather than frightening warnings. The grandmother's approach reflects generations of accumulated wisdom about teaching children. She provides information at a pace the child can absorb. She maintains physical proximity that ensures safety while allowing exploration. She transforms a potentially concerning situation into opportunity for learning and bonding. This is exactly the kind of teaching that the legend is designed to support. It provides framework for understanding why certain precautions are necessary. It offers language for discussing safety that children can understand and remember. It creates cultural context that makes individual family rules seem reasonable rather than arbitrary. The child and grandmother continue their exploration of the fountain area, moving slowly and talking quietly together. Their interaction creates an atmosphere of peace and discovery that enriches the entire space. Other people nearby seem to relax and smile, influenced by the obvious affection and care being shared. This positive influence spreading outward from a single interaction illustrates another way that legends work in communities. They create atmospheres and expectations that encourage certain behaviors. They establish norms that support family well-being and community harmony. They provide models for positive relationships between generations. As the morning continues, the plaza gradually fills with people going about their daily business. Shop owners open their doors and arrange their displays. Customers arrive to browse and purchase. Children walk to school with books and friends, relevant and meaningful. The legend of La Llorona benefits from similar integration into the ordinary activities of community life. It stays alive because it serves real purposes and addresses genuine needs. You stand and prepare to continue your journey, but first you follow the local custom of making a small offering to the fountain. Not a wish for personal gain, but a gesture of gratitude for the morning's experiences and the insights you have gained. The coin disappears beneath the water's surface, joining thousands of others in silent testimony to human hope and appreciation. This simple ritual connects you to all the other people who have made similar gestures at this fountain, and countless others like it throughout the world. It represents the universal human tendency to seek connection with forces larger than ourselves. It demonstrates the desire to participate in traditions that link individuals to their communities and their heritage. As you walk away from the plaza, you carry with you a deeper understanding of how legends like La Llorona maintain their vitality through integration into the fabric of daily life. They are not museum pieces preserved for academic study, but living elements of ongoing cultural systems. They influence behavior, inform decisions, and provide meaning in ways both obvious and subtle. The sun climbs higher as you make your way through the final neighborhoods on your journey home. The morning is advancing toward noon, and the town is fully engaged in the business of another day. But the night's exploration continues to influence your perception of everything you see and hear and experience. You notice things you might have missed before. The careful attention parents pay to their children near any body of water, the way elderly residents position themselves where they can observe and assist if needed, the informal networks of care and support that operate throughout the community, the respect for traditional wisdom that coexists with openness to appropriate innovation. All of these observations add depth and richness to your understanding of the legend and its place in contemporary life. The story is not relic from a bygone era, but active component of ongoing cultural adaptation to eternal human challenges. It provides tested wisdom for new generations facing age-old problems in contemporary contexts. The legend of La Llorona accompanies you now as permanent part of your own cultural knowledge and personal understanding. It will influence how you think about love and loss, responsibility and protection, individual choice, and community well-being. It will inform your responses to situations involving vulnerable people who need care and support.